to another episode of our mini podcast, I Built a Company That Makes a Difference by B1. Here we talk to founders of sustainable businesses to get their takes on how and why they started their companies, and very importantly, lessons learned along the way. Today I'm joined by Jackie Faye, the founder of She Can Try, a nonprofit organization that empowers women through sports, including physical literacy, sponsorship and racing, and highlighting female athletes. Additionally, Jackie is the founder and owner of One January, a women's social impact activewear line made from recycled plastics and which supports women impacted by war and poverty. Jackie, you've built some incredibly fantastic, important companies and projects. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to learning about you and hearing about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, well, I like a lot of things in my life. I sort of became an entrepreneur by accident. My background's journalism, so I started off, as a local television reporter in the United States, and my dream in my 20s was always to make it as a reporter in New York City. So, I think when I was 28 years old, I, got up, moved to New York City, was living in New York City, went to grad school, and I was working in the city trying to make it work. After I got my master's degree from Columbia University, and out of the blue one day, I got an email about a job in Afghanistan. And I was like, wow, well, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. At first I actually thought it was a scam because it was, a job. And I'm like, is this real? Or is this like a prince in Africa, like emailing me, you want $1 million? But I responded. It was a legitimate job. And, before I knew it, I was on a military plane going into Afghanistan. And that was in 2015. And when I got there, I was living on this compound. And before, when I was living in New York City, I always taught fitness classes to make extra money. And so I started teaching fitness classes on this compound just for fun. I wasn't making any money doing it, but just for the people that lived in the compound. I started talking to local Afghan women that worked on the compound and was asking them about sports. And basically they told me, women don't really have access to sports here. And that was the first time in my life I ever even thought, wow, there's some places in the world where women can't play sports. And I had never been exposed to a culture like that. And I just couldn't imagine. I know sports have had such an impact on my life and have enabled me to be the strong woman that I am. And so that's when I started taking steps to make a change because it was really needed. So it wasn't like I set out to be this entrepreneur. It just I saw a problem and I took steps to address it.
So I have so many questions already just from what you said. First of all, what was the job? Was it a reporting, a journalism job?
So I worked as like for private US companies that worked mostly on projects for the Department of Defense. So, I went there in 2015, but I actually I thought I'd stay there for a year, and I ended up staying there off and on for 6 years. So I was there off and on from 2015 to 2021. And in that 6 year period, I spent about 4 years on the ground. So sometimes I would work on stuff for NATO headquarters that would go out on our social media, or would go out to international media. Like, for instance, sometimes journalists wouldn't be allowed to cover certain things, but I would be allowed to have access. Like the first actually UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters that we had trained, no other cameras were rolling when they took off on their first mission except for mine. So if you ever seen, this is the first UH-60 mission from Afghanistan of Afghan pilots, that was my video that I shot on the ground. And then I was also a teacher while I was there. I taught English for Afghans that were actually in the Air Force. And so I had, a couple of different jobs. I bounced around. And then, of course, I launched my nonprofit, and I went into Afghanistan just working for my nonprofit at one point. And so it was, over that 6 year period, it's hard to explain to people because I did so many different things.
So then for somebody like myself, I've never I've maybe once have or twice been on a military base, but I'm not very familiar. So in Afghanistan, you came into contact like very often and regularly with just the regular population, especially young girls and women. Is
Well,
that from teaching?
so it depended what job, so most of the time I lived on a compound where, I wasn't actually exposed to locals on a daily basis, unless like when I was covering things at NATO's headquarters there in Kabul, we would go out and I would be with the locals, but just to cover a story. And then I would
Okay.
go back to the compound. But it was always like, or I'd be on a convoy going out, and then I'd be with the locals, but then I would go back to the compound where I was only, with an international community. And NATO headquarters there was also attached to the US Embassy. So, I always explain it to people, sometimes I was on a compound, sometimes I was at a party at the US Embassy, sometimes I was out in the field sleeping on a cot and only eating MREs. Like sometimes I was living out in a hotel when I was a teacher. And then, when I was working with just my nonprofit, I lived out in town in a house and I only had Afghan guards. And so it was every step was so different. It's just really such a complex experience. It's hard to even explain because every year was so different.
Right. Oh my gosh, how exciting. So then what was the impetus of saying, you know what, I'm going to cross a cultural threshold to start introducing sports?
Yeah. So, in 2015, when I first got there, when I first, was exposed to this culture and thought, hey, I really wish I could do something about this. So I started doing research, first things first. And I came across an article in The Guardian about the Marathon of Afghanistan. And in 2015, they had the first Marathon of Afghanistan, and only one woman participated, one Afghan woman. And she actually trained for the marathon by running circles in her backyard. So
Oh
fast
my
forward to
gosh.
20, yeah, it's crazy. And so I would tell that story in my fitness classes to, the other international workers that were there. And I would say, you don't have any excuse. Like, listen to what this Afghan woman did
Right.
for the marathon here. Um, and I would tell her story as kind of a motivating thing. And then in 2017, I decided I wanted to launch an organization to give sports opportunities, to train women as leaders. Because I don't know if you knew this, but if you look at female leaders, no matter what profession, whether it's politics, business, technology, the military, like whatever it is, so many women leaders played sports.
Yeah.
And so, there's a direct correlation that sports empowers you to be a leader. And so I thought, gosh, if anyone needs opportunities in sports to empower themselves, it's these women impacted by war and poverty. And so in 2017, that's when I launched She Can Try, or started launching it. It didn't launch till 2018, but to launch it, I decided I'm going to become the first woman to do 6 Ironmans on 6 continents in a year. So I, took off, raced around the world, trying to raise awareness for my organization, and it worked. I landed on national television in the United States, and so yeah. And then the organization launched, and then so that was the middle of 2018 when I finished got the world record for becoming the first woman to ever do that. And then in January of 2019, I recruited the first athletes in Afghanistan to train to compete in a triathlon.
So, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. Again, just keeps piling up. I hope this is going to be a long one. Um, okay, so one, I would love to know about your own sports background. That's one thing I would love to know about. And then you you did 6 Ironman triathlons in the space of how long? A year?
6 Ironmans on 6 continents in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with tell us about your own background in sports.
So, I mean, I was just an average athlete. I grew up playing sports. I was a fitness instructor. I've always loved sports, but I wouldn't say I'm like this natural, and nothing has ever come natural to me. I'm not naturally like gifted at anything. I would say I work hard. Um, and I haven't always had a lot of resources, you know, and so it kind of put me in a position to where I was the perfect coach for these women because they didn't have a lot of resources. And I knew, you know, from growing up, you know, not having a lot of money, always having to borrow things to make things happen. You know, I'm a scholarship kid. Like I didn't have money to go to school. Like wasn't able to get my master's until I was nearly 30, because that's when I finally got a scholarship to go to school. You know, it wasn't like I just had, I didn't have, you know, really like the parental support that a lot of people have. And so I really just, you know, yeah, we're hustlers. You know, we make it work. And so that's really what I'm teaching. And is that, you know, no matter, you know, on a shoestring budget and with limited resources, you can still accomplish really, really incredible things.
So, wow. Okay. And okay, all right. I'm gonna sidetrack myself here, but let's get back to She Can Try. So that organization officially launched off the back of this incredible feat that or I'll just have a side here. I watch Ironman triathlons regularly. I grew up in Grand Junction, and we have a couple hometown heroes who are professional triathletes, and they compete a lot in Ironman. So I follow Ironman regularly. Every time I watch one, the last one I watched was Lake Placid. Every time I watch one, I'm just in awe. Like I'm stuck to the TV for 8 hours. I'm completely in awe of the human spirit and the capacity for doing something like that. And I don't think, you know, again, when I go over, I have to remind myself every time I watch one of the numbers. This the length of the swim distance. This is the bike distance. And then there's a marathon at the end. Like it's amazing. Okay, so you did 6 of those incredible feats in 1 year. She Can Try launched off the back of that, and you launched that while you were still in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did that first year of launching look like? Did you have a plan in mind, or you were like, this needs to be in the world, this needs to happen, and it grew organically?
So I'm sort of like a plan as you go kind of person. And I think that's how, like in sports training, like in an Ironman, you know, when you think 140.6 miles, oh my gosh, a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and then a 26.2-mile run. How am I going to do it? Like it seems so overwhelming.
Yes.
You won't even take that first step. But if you just think, hey, this is the goal I want to get to. Today, I'm going to do this to reach that goal. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do this. And the next day, I'm going to do this. So people are always like, oh, you must be so busy all the time. And I never feel super overwhelmed. Like I just work all day. You know, but I take a lot of breaks. Like, you know, I just sort of like do a little bit all the time.
Uh-huh.
But those little bits add up to a lot. And if I think about, gosh, going back to January of 2019, when I recruited these Afghan women, they didn't know how to swim. They were scared of the water. We didn't own bicycles. They didn't know how to cycle. They knew how to run, but they weren't necessarily fast. And so there was a lot of hurdles to overcome. And I think that was really scary because I felt like someone else was depending on me.
Right.
Um, you know, and I think, yeah, that training someone else is so much harder than training yourself, you know? Or I think so anyway. I mean, empowering yourself is always the first step, but then taking that empowerment and giving it to someone else, it's so much harder. So when I look at the fact that I did the 6 Ironmans on 6 continents in a year, I'm like, that was easy. You go try to
Compared to that first training venture. Oh
you
my
go try
gosh.
to train an Afghan woman how to do a triathlon in Afghanistan. That's hard.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know, or even, you know, our latest project now is in Kenya. You know, we're training, we've just recruited 4 women from the largest urban slum in all of Africa, in Kibera. You know, these people make $2 a day if they're lucky, if they're working. You know, only 50% of the population within Kibera is unemployed. I mean, this is extreme poverty. And, but again, we did our project in Afghanistan, which was successful. And that gave me confidence now to move on to do this project in Africa.
So how many women did you start with in Afghanistan training them? And what did your
Four.
training
So we
infrastructure
always
look like?
we
4.
always
Okay.
start with four.
Okay.
And yeah, and we started with four. After a year, only two of them made it to compete in the race.
Mm-hmm.
And then only one of them finished.
Uh-huh.
But I will say, like, our top two athletes in Afghanistan, like, both of them went on to earn scholarships to study in the United States of America. And yeah, I mean, it just ended up being this crazy story. Really, it got them out of Afghanistan, being able to say that they were their country's first triathletes.
That's amazing. That's incredible story.
Yeah. And I mean, but we worked with that, we don't work with, I think that's why I like being why I was coming up with a sustainable model
Uh-huh.
is so many nonprofits that take government funding. Like, that government funding is attached to numbers, and they want you to be able to say, oh, I'm training 300
Mm-hmm.
women from
Mm-hmm.
this many places. And they
Mm-hmm.
want you to do it with, like, not very much money. But we actually spend a lot of money per athlete, and we put a lot of time in, and we change their lives. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we change their lives. Like, it is about quality. And if you have so many numbers, unless you have the money to support that, but most government grants aren't that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's not about the numbers. And if you look at these government-backed programs, are their athletes going on to actually compete in an international race and finishing?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they just playing sports and not ever competing? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's also, I mean, that's great. But our goal is to get them to be represented on an international stage.
And what does the training infrastructure look like at that first group? Was that just you training?
So I mean, mostly we would take them, like, first we started, I took the four women to Dubai. I thought, oh, I'm going to take these girls to go see a triathlon. And so we all flew to Dubai. I took them to the half Ironman there. And then I got them in a pool for the first time. And then for the first couple months, we just paid for them to go swimming.
Right.
And at the time, there were two pools in Afghanistan that allowed women to enter. And so we would pay for their transportation to get to the pool, their entrance, and then get them, home. And so we start out with the swim training, and then we did a training camp in Spain. And so I was able to get them Schengen visas, and I brought them to Spain, got them on bicycles for the first time. And then while we were still in Afghanistan, before that training camp in Spain, we'd gotten spin bikes so that they could just get their legs moving. And then, we got them outside in Spain, and then back in Afghanistan again, now we're swimming, cycling. I actually hand carried bicycles into the country because I was having trouble figuring out how to get bicycles into Afghanistan, like nice bicycles. And I was like, gosh, the easiest way is just for me to buy them and fly in with them. And so, I flew in with bicycles for the athletes. I ended up running the marathon of Afghanistan with my athletes in 2019, the very marathon that I had read about in 2015. I ended up competing in with my athletes in 2019. And then in February of 2020, I ended up taking our top two athletes back to the race that they had seen the year before, the half Ironman in Dubai. Zara was able to finish the swim, and which was still incredible after only a year. And then she made it about halfway through the bike, but was only 2 minutes over at the halfway cutoff time. So she really did really well, even though she didn't make it. I'm still really incredibly proud of her. And then Zainab, finished, and I was there, as she was carrying the Afghan flag across the finish line. But then, like I said, they both went on to earn scholarships to the States. Zainab's flight to America actually fell on August 16th, the day after the country fell to the Taliban. So I ended up, having to help her get on an evacuation flight. Definitely not part of the plan. COVID wasn't part of the plan.
Right.
the Afghanistan government falling was also not part of the plan. But all that, to be said, Zainab did go on, once she was in America, then we supported her to compete in the half Ironman World Championship, just last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, wow.
Oh,
Okay.
and the
So,
half Ironman World Championship now, I think it's this weekend. The next one. Yeah, it's in Finland, this weekend.
oh my gosh. So these were girls, these were teenagers when you first met them.
No, 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 but they were in their 20s. Yeah, they were in their
Oh, they were
20s.
in their 20s.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. That's
You have to be
amazing.
18 to compete. And so,
Okay.
yeah, you can't be under 18 to compete in an Ironman.
So now they're both in school in the US.
They're both graduated. They're both
Both
working.
graduated now. Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. And you're the current project in
Yeah.
Kenya. So you've started that already. And how, I mean, is it like there is a year training program, or is it just kind of trying to coincide with the triathlons in the region that you could take them to? Or how does it work? How do you choose your next projects or where you land next?
So, well, Kenya is home to the largest urban slum in all of Africa, Kibera. We did a pilot program there in February of 2022. I just wanted to see the infrastructure in Kenya. And so I planned a program for 20 girls just to give them some swim lessons. Went out to Nairobi, saw like the roads, the pools, like what kind of infrastructure they have. And of course, Kenya is super, super developed. But they do have this huge inequality, that I mean, all of Africa, you have this very rich people in Kenya, and then you have extreme, extreme poverty. And one part of the population serves the other part of the population. And it's really hard to get out of poverty, because it does serve another part of the population. And so, the inequality in Kenya is large, like, between the rich and the poor. And so, the project, though, the pilot program went great. So we decided to go back and just, serendipitously, the Ironman organizers in Rwanda had reached out to me, and they said, "Hey, we heard about your organization, that you're working with these girls in Kenya." And I said, "Hey, you know what you can do? You can give us some free race slots." So they agreed to give us some race slots, for our fundraising athletes, as well as some athletes in Kenya. And so then we went back to Nairobi, and we organized tryouts. That was just last month. I mean, so we just finished our first month of training in Kenya. So yeah, the end of July, we went back to Nairobi. I took one of our board members, Jocelyn, who's just been a lifesaver to She Can Try. If you see anything on our social media or on our website, that's all her doing. And so, yeah, I mean, and even Jocelyn, like she came across the organization, was inspired, and reached out. Like, through our journey, all these people across the world have reached out to me and wanted to help. And I just think that's what's so beautiful about it. And we're all supporting these women in Nairobi. We are soon to be, recruiting more ambassadors that can race any race. If they don't want to necessarily do the race in Rwanda, they can do any race and raise money for us if they would like, and be part of our, fundraising efforts and team. So if you have any listeners that are interested in that, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to put myself on that list as well. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Cool. I'm there. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit and talk about 1 January.
Yeah. So, I wanted to come up with a way. I mean, largely now we're still donor funded,
Mhm.
and that's when we have these fundraising athletes. We're right now raising $40,000 for our project in Kenya. But eventually I would really like to be a sustainable organization, to where 1 January, which is our activewear, makes enough profit to where it will feed in to She Can Try. 1 January has given She Can Try some money, but it's just not super profitable enough at this time to where it can completely support She Can Try. But I would like to get it to that point. And also, when I was doing She Can Try, a lot of people would ask me like, well, hey, do you have a shirt I can buy? Or like, hey, how can we support you? And so I was like, hey, like, I'll just come up with this clothing line, and you can know when you buy this, like 50% of profits from this are going back to empower women through sports, impacted by war and poverty. And so I thought, what a better way to connect athletes around the world. If you have the ability and opportunity to buy activewear, well then, yeah, you should feel great about going to the gym in our line, knowing that you're truly helping another individual.
So when did you start this line?
So 1 January launched in 2021.
2021. Okay, so you've got,
With pre-sales, but I mean, we really got rolling in 2022. So it's super, super young.
yeah, very young, and you've got these two awesome projects. One is supporting the other, and you also have a day job.
Yeah, I work. The reason I'm here in the Netherlands is I work at NATO in the public affairs office.
Holy moly. Okay, so when you said you just kind of work all of the time, you do. You must just kind of
But
work
only
all
a
of the
little
time.
bit. Like it's just like a little bit all the time. I like staying. But again, I don't feel. I mean, I still have time for people and my friends. Yeah. And I mean, I guess my next biggest project is, this earlier this year, I decided I was going to have a baby on my own. So that's also a huge project. That's almost a full-time job for anyone that's ever, become a single mother by choice. The IVF journey is long and very difficult. So
So that is a huge, huge project that you're undergoing as well. Well, congratulations at I don't think the
the
start,
decision, yeah. I think a lot of
this
women just making
decision.
the decision to do it on their own. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I had a party. I was
Yeah,
like, I
great.
made this decision. I'm not getting married, but we're gonna celebrate me. It was
Yeah,
really about celebrating me.
I love
And
that.
so many women don't do that. Like they feel like, oh, I can have a party, when I have a baby, or oh, I can have a party when I do this thing. But I mean, I'm all about like have a party when you get a promotion at work. Have a party when you've accomplished, this amazing athletic feat. Have a party when you've made a big decision in your life on your own. Like that takes a lot of guts and bravery in my mind. And those are just as equal as, in the United States, 50% of marriages are ending in divorce, so like, why are we celebrating? I don't know. I'm not that I think love is a great thing. But I think there's a lot of things and a lot of other ways to express love with friends or through other accomplishments or whatever, that you can also, celebrate. It doesn't just have to be around, this traditional family model.
100% agree. I also love the idea of celebrating the start of journeys. When somebody decides to start a business or when somebody gets into grad school, the start of the journey, not just the end of it, but making the decision to do something that's undoubtedly going to alter your life and change things in a big way. I think celebrating the start of something or making that decision is important as well, uh, particularly for women.
Yeah, I agree.
So 1 January is not just supporting She Can Try, but it's also your apparel line is made from recycled plastics.
Yeah, so I didn't want to steal from Peter to pay Paul. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was creating a line that was also, good for the world. Like I
Yeah.
didn't want to I'm very from working in Afghanistan, undoubtedly, when you go in to try to do a positive thing, sometimes, you might end up, you know, not always doing a positive thing. There can be negative effects. But if you really think about all those things through before you start something, I think that can be avoided. I think all of us, you know, not meaning to cause small harm in the world, on a daily basis. But I think if you do your best to minimize that harm and really are a conscious shopper, a conscious eater, what you put on your body, in your body, and in your mind matters.
Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of folks in our network who are aspiring apparel entrepreneurs. How did you how did you set up the production? Like, how did you find, it's not just anywhere, especially with all of the production companies that are akin to fast fashion, right? So you can, that run small batches, but are very polluting at the same time. How did you find the companies, the sourcing material, finding production? How did you go about that process?
So, right now we are actually in the process of switching manufacturers. I mean, I was lucky I ordered a big enough bulk order that we had plenty of product, but our first manufacturer was actually in Sri Lanka. And then they broke out into a civil war. And so, we had to pivot after that. But luckily our first, really big bulk order had already been made. And then now we are looking to produce in Mexico, but now, which will be so much easier. Actually, I wish, in hindsight, you learn so much, when you start a company. But the shipping was also really, really difficult, especially right after COVID. I mean, you have to remember, I developed this in 2021. So getting product across the world in 2021 was really, really hard. Also, as a small company, billion-dollar companies were struggling getting product across the world. And so it was really hard to compete. And so I would but you have to stick with it. But that is, why I decided to keep my day job for now, is because, I can do a lot, but I can't do everything at one time. And so, and especially in the United States, sadly, we don't have a national healthcare plan. And as I said, I'm in the process of becoming a mother. And so as an entrepreneur, to have health insurance in the States is very hard. And so I thought, the only way I can make this work is to stay in my job, have my baby, and then grow it slowly. But yeah, I mean, now, I mean, I want to get to a point in my life where I'm only working for myself. But yeah, I'm not there yet either. It takes a long time. But yeah, I mean, I want nothing more but to have to answer to no one but me.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably for myself and everybody listening who are somewhere along the entrepreneurial journey. That's probably a big motivator. One of them is, when you see a problem and you think, "Oh, I'm going to take a crack at that." And the other one is, yeah, of course, autonomy, to be able to take a crack at a problem in the way that you want to do it,
Yeah.
especially along your own time scale and with the resources that you can muster up.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, when I started one January, I was typing into Google, like, how do you start a clothing line? And then I came across, Alibaba. And I reached out to a couple manufacturers there. It wasn't great quality. I started reading all these books about other companies where they found their manufacturers. They suggested, looking up like your favorite clothing lines manufacturers. So like I'm like looking in every like activewear line that I like. I'm like, where's this made? And how do I find the manufacturer? And
Oh, that's smart.
I did a couple of Google searches. The manufacturer that we went with in Sri Lanka, had also worked with some other really, really well-known big brands that
Yeah,
produce great quality. And so I thought, well, gosh, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And then also, they weren't the cheapest to go with, but they did produce us with the best quality. And they were also able to source all the product and promise, us that it came from fair processing, which
right,
we really cared about. And so
right.
that was really great.
And so are you the designer as well? Do you run that thing? By thing, I mean project. Like, this is you're doing the designing, you're doing the ordering, you're doing logistics, you're doing the social media, you're doing the marketing. All of it is you?
So we have a 3PL, that handles our shipping and that sort of thing. And then, we're working really hard right now on developing partnerships with gyms. So I'm working with
Oh,
another
right.
gentleman that's trying to get our product in some gyms across the United States. But we're really small. We have 4 products, and that's what my advice would be. I would almost tell other entrepreneurs, like, not even to start with 4, like, start with 1.
Okay.
Like start, you want to start so big, but like, if you develop one really good product,
Hmm.
like, God, yeah, I would do so many things different. I would have manufactured in Mexico. I would have only started with one product. Like, there's just, you learn so many things, from the mistakes that you make, but it cost me a lot of money, to
Right.
make those mistakes. And especially when I was trying to make money for my nonprofit, that cost was extra, hurtful, I guess, because I was like, I'm trying to raise money for my nonprofit, and all it's doing is making me lose money. But yeah, but hopefully eventually, you learn from your mistakes and you grow.
So if you look back at the now it's like I guess 18 months or so since you've really officially launched and you're out there. Um, you mentioned manufacturing, the location you have changed, starting with 4 products. You went out the gate with 4 products, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else in terms of marketing or just launching? Anything else that you would have done differently if you could have?
I mean, I definitely would have raised money. I wanted to bootstrap, and yeah, that's been, I've been very fortunate in my career. I've made a fair amount of money, but yeah, it was just, it was so much. I think you don't realize how much things cost.
Mm,
Like, think how much money you need and then times it by 4 and
yeah.
then
Okay.
times it again by 2. Like, it always costs so much more than you think it will. And you don't realize, like, you have to order so much product to get it to a price point where you can be competitive.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a lot. That's why, if you only, especially if you're bootstrapping, you start with one product, it might be a little more doable. But you have to order a lot of product, and then, competing with these multi-million dollar companies. Well, the only way you can, I think, truly compete is, well, you also need to make $1 million.
Right. Right.
um, so yeah.
And if I could ask you somewhat of the same question about starting a nonprofit, I'm sure I've never worked in a nonprofit. I've been on some boards, but I've never worked in a nonprofit, especially on the business side. So I'm sure there are a lot of idiosyncrasies to starting and running a nonprofit organization. But what now, with some hindsight, would you have done differently in starting a nonprofit with the knowledge that you have now?
Oh gosh, I've learned a lot with the nonprofit. Um, I mean, most of the things that I've learned with a nonprofit is about working with other people, but I wouldn't say like anything. I don't know that I learned really how to say no.
Oh,
That was
interesting.
like one of the, because so when you have a nonprofit, a lot of people want to help you, but what you find when people want to help you is they want to help you in the way they want to help you, not in the way that's actually helpful to you. And so,
Oh,
um, so people would call me and they'd say, hey, like, I have all these, clothes that I need to donate. Very well-intentioned people. But if I don't have the time and resources to go through all those clothes, and I'm paying for transportation for my athletes who already have clothes, like, then we become, now we're goodwill. And we're, when we're really trying to focus on training these athletes, and now I'm sorting through clothes, and that I'm like, what am I doing?
right.
And so I've really learned how to say, like, if someone reaches out to me and says, I would like to help, I'm like, this is what we need. If you cannot provide this, I don't want your help.
Got it. Oh, that's
because
interesting.
yeah, or you just end up, in the nonprofit world, it's called mission creep, and so many people are like, oh, well, did you think about this? And like, I'm like, I do not have the capacity to think about anything else. Like, I am thinking about this and only this. And that's also given me like a superpower to really accomplish that. Like, I think when people think, oh, well, what are we going to do in 10 years? Like, in 10 years, like, give me a break. Like think about today and tomorrow. And yeah, I just focus on, the small goal and get that done, and then think about, the growth. And so yeah, it just, if you try to accomplish everything at once, you will, one, end up very bitter, which I have definitely become very bitter at certain
Ah,
through my journey. And you're like, I hate all these people trying to help me. But if you just, very politely learn how to say no, but yeah, I've gotten so much better at communicating what I need, in all aspects of my life, from running the nonprofit.
that's amazing. Okay, that's a very actionable uh piece of advice, I think. Especially and I hear, seasoned entrepreneurs say this a lot, which is focus on the goal that's immediately in front of you. Of course, you can have a business plan, or you can have a vision board for what you want in 10 years, even 5 years out, even 3 years out. But you need to, like, you've got to get over that next challenge for there to be a challenge after that. So focus on the thing that's immediately in front of you, do that well, get it off your plate, and then go to the next thing. And
Exactly.
that's how you should really spend your time. Do you feel like the fact that you can work in short bursts for, a sustained amount of time, that equips you well to be an entrepreneur with multiple projects going on?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like being, work on this a little bit, work on this a little bit. And I'm also, really efficient, and also, self-motivated.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, I take my to-do list every day, like, so seriously. And I get such a high, like, when I get to mark something out. Like, and I'll show you my day planner. Like, like I mark everything out in perfectly
And
straight.
you write it out too.
Like,
You write
but
it.
yeah, like, but and yeah, I keep a paper planner. I know, like, that's like, yeah, some people in like today's world, they're like, don't you know, like, Google Calendar? And I mean, I do have my like Google Calendar, but then I also put it in my paper planner, because I just feel like I can see it better when I hold it. It's tangible, it's real. I need to get this done. Um, and if anyone wants to make fun of me for that, well, you know who also does that? Sheryl Sandberg. So,
There you go.
so like, if it's good enough for Sheryl Sandberg, it's good enough for me.
I also have a paper but I think mine is more, I also went to journalism school, but I think it's more a function of being trained to be a newspaper journalist
Yeah.
than my age. Hopefully I'll say that. Are you still competing in Ironmans?
No, I mean, right now, I mean, I'm focused on, really just providing. Yeah, I mean, I'm just at the point in my life, like, I have enough medals. Like, I don't, maybe after I have my baby, I'll, say, oh, I'm doing my after, I became a mother race. But I've just
Uh-huh.
really gotten to a point in my journey, where I really am just focused on becoming a mother, building relationships around me, and empowering other women. And that's enough.
I like that a lot. All right. Well, we usually close our session with some rapid fire questions. We've got about six if you don't mind.
Ooh, rapid fire. I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, rapid-ish, because they're not yes or no questions, so rapid-ish. We're now at the tail end of August. It's summer, wrapping up summer. What do the rest of your plans for 2023 look like? I know you've mentioned having a baby. That's at the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, and just fundraising. I mean, we are in fundraising for She Can Try. We are actually already pretty much halfway through. So I said we were raising $40,000. And so we still have $20,000 to go. So I've been organizing a lot of fundraising events, and then just trying to get the awareness out and the word out about what we're doing, so that people, can get involved if they want to. And then, of course, yeah, just my IVF journey, is, I mean, I made one New Year's resolution this year, and that was to get pregnant, and I'm still not there, and it's August, and I still don't know if it's going to happen this year. But I'm not discouraged. Like, I think, yeah, just plugging along. I mean, I'm just gonna keep trying until it works.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Um, okay, so if we think about your amazing journey so far, especially in the entrepreneurship, in the entrepreneurial realm, what do you feel like, might not be one thing, but what do you feel like is your biggest success to date? And however you would define success.
Oh gosh. My biggest success to date. I don't really know that yeah, I mean, I'm proud of myself for I guess all the self-work that I've done. Like I don't think I would be able to be the person that I am today without really looking in the mirror and doing a lot of hard self-work. And I think some people go their whole lives and never do that work. And that has been probably the most challenging, but most rewarding. And yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of therapy. It's painful, but yeah, it's enabled me to be hopefully a better person, and hopefully, it also has taught me so much about myself. Like I really feel like I know myself so well.
Awesome. I too am a big fan of therapy. The flip side of that, what would you consider to be your biggest failure today? Again, however you might define that word.
So I'm more of the mindset that, it's not really ever a failure. You always are learning. And so, I mean, I've fallen flat on my face like a lot of times, but that's life. Like life ebbs and flows. But I think, again, we were talking earlier, about making the decision to try something. I mean, even in this pursuit of pregnancy, like there is a possibility like that never works out for me. And but gosh, I would hate it if I had never tried, and I'm giving it my all. And so I don't think anything's a failure. I mean, will I be sad? Like, of course I'll be sad, like, will I maybe have to pivot my idea of what being a mother looks like? Maybe. But you just have to go with the flow of life and constantly learn and adapt. So I don't know that I believe in failure.
Yeah, I like that, especially the just try it as well.
Yeah. And don't be scared of the failure because I mean, who cares but yeah, who cares?
Awesome. All right. And what about, you might have already answered this in your last two questions, but what is the most important lesson you feel you've learned to date?
I mean, I think focusing on people and relationships. Yeah. I mean, I think when I was younger, I wanted, I don't know, just all these silly things. Now just um I mean, I want to be comfortable and I still want nice things, but um more than anything, I want to be around people that are full of love and inspiring. And also people that also have done the work. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if when you hang around other people, you become who you hang around. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really, I want to be around people that make me want to be the best version of myself.
Oh, that's inspiring. Um, all right. And with everything that you've seen in lots of different parts of the world that you've been to, if you could get 85% of the world to adopt a single behavior, what would that be?
Oh gosh, a single behavior, 85% of the world. I mean, I think it would only take not even 85% of the world to make big changes in the world. I think if we didn't allow any billionaires, that would solve a lot of the world's problems. When you look at the massive amounts of wealth that some people have, and the extreme poverty that other people are living in, it doesn't make sense. And so, I think we all need to look at ourselves and think, why do we need all of this? And is that fair? And I think, um, one person can work at a worthy startup and become a millionaire, and another person can work at a worthy startup and become broke. You know, a lot of wealth is luck, and timing. And sure, both of those people might have worked hard, but one person didn't deserve the $1 million any more than the other person did. And so, yeah, I just think, spread the wealth, spread the love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, where can we find you? And by you, I mean 1 January and She Can Try. If you could give us a
Yeah.
plug for where you live online and social.
Yeah, so She Can Try is at She Can Try, TRI, as in triathlon, pretty much on everything. So LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then our website is shecantry.org. And then 1 January is 1january.com, spelled out one. And then on socials, we are at 1 January Sport.
Awesome. Jackie, a huge thank you for joining us today. I really enjoyed learning about your journey and more about you as well. And I will absolutely follow up with you afterwards about becoming an ambassador for She Can Try, because what a
We
worthy
would love to have
cause.
you. We have such an
Yeah,
incredible group of women. You would fit right in.
I would
Thank you so
love
much for
it.
your time.
Thank you. And to everyone else in the audience, we'll see you on B1.